Our objective is to create custom pivot tables in order for us to answer some business questions which were recently asked for by the business. So in this example or tutorial, we would then go through the questions that are coming from the business, and then we would then look at the data that we currently have and then answer the questions. So this is an example of sales. So as you can see from all the other examples that we've done before, you have to always transfer your knowledge to a certain exercise that you need to do. So we've done data cleaning and manipulation and also transforming data, and we've done various types of exercises with data. So now, obviously, before we can do our pivots, we have to make sure all the other steps that happen before pivots are also done. So we need to look at our data, we need to make sure that it's correct, then we're ready to pivot it. But as you can see from here, as we're going, this is supposed to be a dollar, and currently it's numeric. So using all the skills, we know that you must click here, then go to the dollar sign, and then change our field over here for sales into dollar. And then here we can see here we have 30 rows, and here we have date. So it's up to us whether we'd like to change the date here. So if we'd like to see the date in a long date format, or if we'd like to see the date in a short date format, which is what we did. So even in the pivot table, we will see once we create that the date will also be taken care of. So now let's have a look at the questions that we actually need to answer. So before creating a pivot, you need to understand what are the questions. And from that, you need to visualize your data. Either you're going to draw out or try visualize in your mind how you want to answer the question. So you first have to visualize in your mind how you're going to cross-tabulate your data, um, what you're going to have on your y-axis or what you're going to have on your x-axis, and how you're going to visualize it in order to answer your question. So the first question here is, what is the total sales for clothing in store 1 for January? And the second one is, what is the total sales for electronics in store 2 for January as well? The third question is, what is the total sales for home goods in store 2 for February? And then the other question is, what is the average sales across all stores from January to April? And then the last one is, what is the average sales across all stores from May to August, excluding June? So here we will start off from the top, then we'll go down. Then we would then have our answer here, that we know that we done with a certain question. So in order for us to answer these questions seem very similar. As you can see here, what are we looking for? So we are looking for total sales. So sales is one, you can say variable that we're looking for. And then for clothing, in store 1 for January. So here there's sales, there's department. So if you can look at your data, there's department, which is clothing. There's also store, which here is also store, and then also January, which is your period or date. So we are going to have to consider all the different variables within our data in order to answer this question. Same for this one, we're looking at sales, we're looking at the department, we're looking at the store and the period. Also for this one, we're looking at sales, we're looking at the department, the store and the period. Then for this question, we're looking at sales across all departments, and then we're looking at the period. So here, because we're looking at all stores and it wasn't mentioned specifically what department, so here we would then have look at the overall store rather than specific departments. Then the same here as well, but the difference between the two is the dates. Then we'll start with the first one in order for us to answer the question. So we'll create a pivot table. So here, it, all these three will probably use the same pivot table, then these two will use a pivot table as well. So we'll start with the first pivot table. So what you want to do, you want to either highlight everything by dragging, or you just want to click on the top left cell and then press Control A. And then you go to your insert, say pivot table, and where we want to insert our pivot table. So we can either insert our pivot table here. If you want to insert it within this sheet, you would then say existing worksheet, and then you press the location. Or if you want to have it in a new sheet where it opens a new tab, and then you'll have to go across different sheets. But for this, we will say in the current, and then we'll say we want the pivot table there. It says, okay, valid. Let's just put it there. There we go. So now we have our pivot table. Just double check again. What is the total sales for clothing in store 1 for January? So we're looking at sales. So what we want to do, so we want to first pull up the date. So we will come here. As you can see, you can drag. So what you do, you press you left click on your mouse and you just drag this field. These are called fields. So these are also the same as these columns here. So these are fields when they are in a pivot table. So what happens when that disappears, you can always just come click on your pivot table, or you can right click and say show field list, or you can hide. So what you want to do, you want to take the date and pull it under rows. So you'll see, so now the date will be here. As you can see, all the dates are under here. And then what else do we need to look at? We need to look at for clothing in store 1. So where does clothing sit? Under department. So let's click here. Let's take department. Let's put department under clothing so that it fits under the date. Let's actually, so if you right click here and then you say, come to expand and collapse, you can say expand entire field. Then you're going to see each month, you're going to see for each department, so all the departments for each month. And then here will be the month total, and these are all the departments. What else do we want to see? So we don't have the store. We know the month, we know the department, but we don't know which store. So what we want to do is, so within a store, what's broader, a store, department, a store. So it's a store before a department. So we would also drag this, but you can drop it just on top of department. So that we have store 1, then we have the 2 departments within store 1. Store 2 only has 1 department, and then as you can see, there's different departments in different months as well. So now we also want to look at the sales. So we're going to pull the sales into values, because sales is a value. Then we pull our sales there. So now we can see a sum of sales, because we want to see total sales. So if you click here and say value fields, you can change here either to sum or count, average, max, min, and then all the different functions. But here, because we're looking for total, we want to sum this. And then from here, you can say number format if you want to do a different format and say currency, decimal places. You want 2 or 1 or 0. Let's say 2, and we click there. And we're saying another currency, so you can always change the symbol of the currency that you want. You can say, okay, so let's answer our question. What is the total sales for clothing in store 1 for January? Let's go to store in January, store 1, clothing. What is the total sales? $100. So we can even say equals. So if we want a reference, and then we click here, clothing, and then we press enter. So it brings up the answer there, so that even if someone is checking, they'll be able to see where you are referencing and if that is correct. And then also, what is the total sales for electronics in store 2 for January? And then we look at store 2, electronics. Doesn't seem like there's electronics for store 2. Then here we would then say 0, because as you can see, the store 2 in January, we only have clothing sales and we don't have electronics in store 2. Only store 1 has both clothing and electronics. Cool. Then we move on and we look at what is the total sales for home goods in store 2 for February. Then we go to our data, store 2, then we look at home goods. So that's what we're looking for. We can say equals, then we can go to February home goods. We click there, we say enter. There's our answer. Then now we've answered these three, which was total sales, and now we want to look at average sales across all stores from January to August. So here we would need to adjust our pivot. Either we create a new pivot, or we can simply just copy this pivot. We want to paste this pivot, and we're going to adjust this pivot to be what we actually want. So now we want to look at average sales across all stores from January. So now we would want to look at department. We from March to April. So here we would need to combine our months. So let's actually take out if you click here, you're going to take out the months here. Then we want to look across all stores. So we also don't need to have stores. So you can either drop it there or you can unclick. So now we have months. Months, and then average sales across all stores from certain months. So let's first change here. We had sum of sales, which is total, but now we actually want to look at average sales. We click at average, and there we go. And then we have our average sales. And then what we want to do, we want to bring in. So here, what we can do, we can even remove this date and actually use the we can actually use the filter rather. So we can take this date and put it here. So now we're going to look at total. So we are actually looking across all stores from January to April. So what we want to do, we can either copy this into 2 so that the other one will be April, January to April. We can label January to April. And the other one is May to August, excluding June. Paste that. What we want to do here, we want to then filter based off this criteria. So we've got our average sales across all stores because we don't have any stores selected. So it's going to look at all stores. So we want to look at January to April. So here we want to click select multiple, then unselect. And here, what we want to do, we want to select all Jan to April. Let's see if there's a better way. Because now you'd have to, maybe the date just needs some adjusting. Let's see. You always have to clean your data because that's not working. refresh. It's giving the dates as if it could group them, but now it's okay. We can rather just use the manual way rather than, so let's rather calculate it rather than manually automating it via the pivots. So it's still not a train smash. So what we can then do is we can then maybe remove this as an average. We can go back here and say it's a sum. So stats always has to be in your mind whenever you're doing this, because now we're gonna average it on the side rather than, so now we're getting total. So now January to, so we want to look at January to April. We want to then say equals average January to April. Then you close. That's your average sales. So here, what are your average sales May to August, excluding June? May to August, excluding June. So you would click and then you press Control, you skip June, you click on July and August, and then you close. There we go. Those are our answers. So now we can just say equals, then click on that. So we can say equals, click on that. And there we go. And then those are our answers for our different questions from creating pivots. So you could have endless questions. You could either have multiple pivots, and all of these pivots are all coming from the single data here. So you can chop and change different pivots. You can use the same pivot. You can collapse your data, look at the months alone. You can look at the different stores alone without departments. So there's a lot that you can do with pivots. It's a very powerful tool.